Abstraction or abstract art could be found as far as 70,000 years ago in the Paleolithic cave art, especially engraved in like geometric patterns. But in the late 19th century, artists were beginning to break away from realism, and in the 1900s to 1930s, they developed techniques involving color and rejecting the 3D perspective, as well as developing new shapes. The first type of art to break away from realism was Impressionism in the 1870s, and it was non-naturalistic yet derived from the real world. So, like Claude Monet's water lilies, and the use of color was key. And then in 1945, the Center of Modern Art moved from Paris to New York City. So here you will see some different types of themes that were present in this abstraction, but overall they depict forms that were not seen in the natural or visible world, and they emphasize free, spontaneous emotional expression using freedom of technique, all done to evoke expressive qualities like violence, mystery, or lyricism, and the intent was to create something that had never been studied before. Creating the force of the creative unconscious in art, and it was built or painted on large canvases, oftentimes, to give a visual experience which was powerful and overwhelming. Some notable figures in the abstract art industry include Jackson Pollock, who I'm sure you recognize from his splatter paint pieces. He had a huge emphasis on the loose brushstrokes and free movement. And then we have Lee Krasner, who was actually married to Jackson Pollock, but they had kind of an abusive relationship, and while they were married, Lee only worked on small pieces, which didn't include a lot of color, and then when Jackson had passed away, she moved into bigger pieces, which were like sizes of walls and included great amounts of color and expression. And lastly, Ellsworth Kelly played a lot with the idea of space and what was in the background and what's in the foreground, and challenging the viewer to sort of think about what was going on in the picture. Abstract art, which came from the 40s, has a huge emphasis on art today, whether it's photography or sculpture or music. And it was in the 20th century that there was a huge emphasis on the gap between art and natural appearance. And even though we're in the 21st century, I still feel like those concepts are heavily emphasized. And abstract art was inspired by Romanticism, which had a lot of value in imagination and the unconscious. These themes also come up in our world today, with art being created to break those stereotypes and rules put in place for people and for them to break outside their box.